This video is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. Guys, this thing is incredible. It's light, it's sleek, it's industrial. And by the way, it goes into your front pocket. It doesn't awkwardly bulge out of your back pocket. It's seriously changed my whole pocket game. And if you've moved on from the flip phone, don't you think it's time to let that 90s style wallet that your father used behind? Guys, a Ridge Wallet holds up to 12 cards, plus all the cash you need. You can choose from over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. It is the best wallet you can buy. You don't just have to take my word for it, because there's over 30,000 five-star reviews. I was skeptical at first, but once you try it, you'll never go back to your old wallet. There's no pressure. Test it for 45 days. If you don't love it, send it back, get a full refund. When you decide to keep it, there is a lifetime warranty. Click the link in the description to get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns. Go to ridge.com/Chael. That's ridge.com/Chael. Use the promo code Chael. Here's a question for you, and think about this. I would like a response. Is TJ Dillashaw the greatest competitor you've ever seen in MMA? And if he's not, tell me who is. Because maybe he's not for you, but I'll bet you he's up there. I'll bet you he's up there. And I know there's a recency bias, guys. I get drunk on the excitement as well. I get it. But that was dog tough. I mean, when I think about tough guys, the guys I admire, the guys I sit back and watch, and that's the guy I want to be like. They're the competitors. It's not always the guy that just breezes through everybody and it's easy, right? Ronda Rousey was real good with the aggression, the punches and the kicks, but when it came back her way, that's what makes you a fighter. Can you then stand up to it? I'm not giving Ronda a hard time with it myself. We all do, right? But that's the part. That's why when you see it and you recognize it, you go, wow, and you compliment it. To watch what TJ Dillashaw went through, and then being armed with the fact that his knee hurt, possibly a torn MCL, we don't know, but a knee bothersome. We'll leave it at that. To see the cut that he had already sustained 6 weeks before, he knew full well if I get hit in this, it's going to spurt blood and it's going to affect my vision. To be losing round after round, to have a 2.5-year layoff, to not have his candy anymore, which some people has a psychological effect, and to see him deal with all of that and win, man, he is one of the great competitors I've ever seen. Tell you another great competitor. Use an example. Take Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo knows how, when people are watching and the pressure's on and we're keeping score, right? What's the difference between practice and a match? We keep score. On game day, we keep score. It's for real. And those guys that rise to the occasion. But one thing with Henry, not his fault. He was so damn good. He didn't have a lot of that. St. Pierre had a very hard time. St. Pierre's the greatest to have ever done the sport, but he had to prove that from 2002 to 2017 before people understood. And the reason why is he didn't deal with any adversity. Some bitch only lost 2 rounds, and it was in the same fight. It was to Johnny Hendricks. Nobody else could even win a round against the guy. I don't think you have to correct me. I saw the BJ Penn fight. I know what his career is. But when you have guys like that, it can hold them back, and it can hold them out in perception. Khabib went through a lot of that. In many ways, for me, he still does. I will fully concede that Khabib was the best, and I will even concede he was the most dominant because I have proof, which is he has more 10-8 rounds than anybody in combat history. That includes boxing. But when you're that damn dominant, you don't have to dig as deep. I mean, do you see the difference? You want to talk about gritty. Michael Bisping would come to mind. That's a straight badass. He's going to fight you for 15 minutes. No matter what happened in the previous minute, he's coming at you right now. Great competitor. Randy Couture had one of the most abnormal fights in the history of the sport. Pedro Hizo Part 1. Abnormal because if you break, and if any of you haven't broken, you probably think you're too tough to break. The reality is you haven't pushed yourself to that point, right? All athletes have been broken. Sometimes it's on TV in front of the world. Sometimes it's in the practice room, but they've all been broken. So then you can recognize it. If you ever break, I will just share with you that you cannot, you fundamentally can't categorically, no one knows how to say that word, cannot come back that same night. When you are done, you are done. And not only can you not come back that night, you not only got to go to the locker room, you're done, go to the hotel, sleep, fly home. You need about 3 months off before you even come and try it again. Literal statement by me. When you break, there's no recovering. Randy Couture broke against Pedro Hizzo. And the only time I've seen it in all of sport in my entire life, he came back while in the fight. Whether it was during a round, during an exchange, in the water break between rounds, I don't know, but I have never seen it before or since where an athlete has broken in front of my eyes and came back. So I only share that with you because that's really what the grittiness I'm talking about is, right? It's not just to have a cut like TJ did. It's not to feel good and your knee hurts or you've had some time off. It's when all of these things get stacked up against you. You have the odds makers picking against you. You have the crowd booing you, and you have a stone cold killer in front of you, and you deal with it anyway. It's very impressive, guys. I mean, it is one of those things that you see, and you see it very rarely. Fighters will call it their Rocky moment. And a lot of times in their Rocky moment, they got beat, but they try to come out on like the bright side of things. If I really hung in there and I really pushed, look, a lot of times they're telling the truth, and they can be and should be very proud of it. But it's an even rarer occurrence when all of the things I just stated happened and the guy leaves with the gold medal, gets his hand raised. It's what you dream about as a kid. It's when you picture yourself fighting in short pants with a mouthpiece and some little bitty gloves on somebody else handed you. It's what you dream that you would have one of those moments. And TJ went out there and had it. And I think that Sandhagen did too. Sandhagen's stock does not go down, not even a little bit. Sandhagen has showed now multiple times that he can go with the best in the world. His last two opponents are world champions. One of them he for sure beat in Frankie Edgar, and many people think he won this one too. Sandhagen's record right off the top of my head is like 13-2. It was 13-1 coming into this fight. Sandhagen's great. That's my point. Sandhagen's great. No bad Sandhagen, but if you want to give TJ his full due, you have to recognize how good Sandhagen did. You have to recognize what a special performance that was and how close it was. Now, Team Sandhagen is well aware of the deficiency in the takedown defense, which is coupled in with the ability to get back to their feet. And you only need one of those two. You can be Jose Aldo, where you're the hardest guy out there to take down, or you can be a slippery son of a bitch who knows how to get up off the bottom once they're taken down. Conor McGregor of 2016 would fall into that category, by example. Yeah, you can get him down. Good luck holding him there. Michael Bisping's name, who I used a minute ago. Yeah, you can get him down. You're not going to keep him there. You only need one of those two. Be really hard to take down or be really hard to hold down. Sandhagen's team is aware that they have a deficiency in both, and they haven't fixed it. I don't give them a hard time for that. I sympathize with them for that. I had a move that some of my friends still tease me today. You guys know an isosceles? An isosceles is a triangle. I kept getting put in triangles. I got put in triangles in my first amateur loss. I got put in a triangle in my first world title loss. And I had teammates that would call me isosceles. Hey, isosceles. Now, the joke didn't work because I couldn't remember from sophomore year geometry class what an isosceles was. So it was a later time, but I only share with you. Just because you know a problem doesn't mean you can now fix it. It could be a body type issue. I don't know why I got put in triangle chokes. Did I not see it coming? Am I sleeping on the job? Did I secretly want out of those fights? That's a possibility too. Or is my body just built in a way? Did I hold my posture in a way where guys could slip an arm down and keep one arm in my leg? I don't know. I still don't know the answer to it. I just acknowledge that just because you've identified the problem doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fix the problem. You got to go out there on the fly and try. I think that Sandhagen, not for nothing, but I think that his takedown defense is much better now than it was a year ago. I think even though those takedowns is what cost him the fight, if you juxtapose this performance and that defense against what Sandhagen did with Aljamain Sterling, I think that you can clearly see that Sandhagen is serious about it. He's identified it and he's working on it. But it's just that. He's working on it. It's a work in progress. I would be curious how Sandhagen trains. There are guys who on training day only want to work on what they're good at. And I came up with Dennis Hallman. by example. And Dennis, I remember the first day I ever worked out with Dennis Hallman. I remember where I was. I remember the whole thing. I went home and told my dad, this is the best fighter I've ever met. And Dennis Hallman made fools of me and of Jeff Munson. Munson was the reigning Abu Dhabi champion at the time, heavyweight. And Hallman made fools of us, and he was fighting 155 pounds, but he was that good on the ground. I'd never seen anything like it. I literally went home and told my dad, who sold a van and then bet $5,000 on Dennis Hallman to beat Jens Pulver because I told him Dennis was going to win. Over time, as Dennis began showing us what he knew and what he was good at, because that's what Dennis loved. I'm friends with Dennis, but it's okay that I'm talking about Dennis. He didn't work on the other stuff. He loved ground day because that's what he was comfortable with. He did not love kickboxing day. So instead of immersing himself in kickboxing and even that out, he would really focus his efforts on ground day. And it was one of these things where I spoke to Dennis over time, and Dennis told me, here's a mistake I made. I love the ground. I got immersed in it. I got really good at it. And I took my eye off everything else because I thought my overwhelming ground game would take me to the championship. And it's just one of those things. Lesson learned. But I would be curious with Sandhagen, who's naturally long. He's naturally gifted. You saw some of those spinning attacks. And you remember when he hit a spinning attack and kicked Frankie Edgar and looked like a superstar, got a big bonus and all these different things, featured on SportsCenter, right? I mean, there's a reason he takes these risks. I would be curious, and I don't know the answer, if he works just as hard on the ground in the defenses. I pass no judgment here. It just seems as though when I watch Corey Sandhagen, I'm looking at a damn near perfect fighter. Like a guy I would dream of having those skills. A video game, a Demetrius Johnson style. The only time you see these techniques are choreographed or in video games, but he can actually do them. And I do believe that Sandhagen is going to fight for a world championship. I am not yet convinced that Sandhagen isn't going to be the world champion, as a matter of fact. But he's in a unique spot that it does not appear he needs to work on everything and he needs to grow everywhere. It appears that we have identified as a community the one and only thing that he needs to work on, but that tells his competitors, that tells his opposition and his enemies what the blueprint is. Which means if Sandhagen and Team Sandhagen felt an urgency ever to work on takedown defense and or scrambles back up to their feet, that now needs to be exemplified. Very much so. Exponentially more emphasis needs to go on that because the enemies are watching. And they're realizing with an urgency how important it is to get this guy off his feet. One of those things, guys. But before you think it's a negative, many fighters will go through their career before they have this identified. Sandhagen's there. What does he do with it? That's his next step.